What is up, everybody? It's me, Dude Farley, back at it again here on Lost at Sea. It's been a couple weeks since I have covered some Ascendance Live season 3, but I am so happy to get back on the podcast, and I'm so happy to be joined this morning by five-time winner of Orgs, Jabbar, just fresh off of a win last night in Conquest. What is going on, Jabbar? How are you?
I'm perfectly fine. If you can't tell by the face, I'm half asleep. Obviously, post game, after party stuff. But I'm very happy to be here.
Happy to have you back on. I think you were one of the first people that was on during the opening sequence of Ascendance Live season 3. And I remember distinctly talking to you about, CJ opening up the game real hot. And he actually made it pretty far considering we kind of had our doubts in that opening episode, right? Um, but I want to talk about last ep- episode a week ago where we see two people get eliminated. Josh as well, not Josh. It was CJ, right? Yeah, CJ and Sarah. So let's
Yes.
dive into that episode. Um, my first note was we've seen this before, a challenge where you kind of go under a net and you try to find tiles or whatever to bring them back.
Mhm.
It was fun to see. Josh had obviously seen prior seasons, and the first thing he does is go to the net and tries to find a power, which he is successful in doing so.
Yeah. I'm yeah. I mean, if you've seen season two, I guess with the ball pit and the pendant in there, especially at the individual portion of the game, you kind of have to think that there's something
Right.
floating around these things. And what a better person to have it than like world class underdog at this point.
Yeah. So I was super shocked that it was only Josh. It seemed well, we don't know, but Josh was the only one that like mentions it in his confessionals of, that's what he's going for right away.
Mhm.
Um, And it took him a couple tries, I feel like. The first time he didn't get it, and then the second time, I guess he flipped it over a different way, and then he found
Mhm.
it. So good for him. Ultimately, in this next vote, though, well, let's first touch on AJ, right? I think at this point has maybe the most wins ever in Ascendance Live in terms of captain and overall just wins. What do you think at this point, still in the game? AJ, does he have to win to get in?
Um, as somebody who's went to the end with like a very competition heavy person, absolutely. Quite frankly, whether or not you have like the best story, the common perception is that like you being in a game is taking away from other people's chances to win the competitions. So when I was watching the episode, I immediately thought, okay, so AJ, the first chance that he loses, he's probably going to be a target, which fast forwarding obviously isn't the case, but running through my mind in this moment, I'm like, wow, he definitely needs to win out to get it.
Yeah, at this point, right? Because
Mhm.
I mean, geez, everybody's talking about it in their confessionals. How he is just dominating every single type of challenge too. But we do see, after Josh finds his pendant, um, age. There's a debate on whether who to save, right? Who the captain's going to save. But ultimately, the vote comes down to people voting out Josh. He doesn't get successful with AJ saving him. And everybody kind of piles 4 votes on Josh, and then they split the vote, putting 2 on CJ, where um just the remaining 6 kind of split their votes among those two. At that point, I was thinking, was there anybody in that position that would have been smart to join the two kind of at the bottom and vote somebody out that's in this 6-person majority? Um, did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I had quite a few thoughts on that because the other two votes were on Ozzy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that this is kind of where I begin to get scared for the season because I felt like it had a really, really strong start with like these two warring sides and every round being like just a spectacle. And I was very nervous. I was very happy that Josh played the idol correctly or the pendant correctly. But when it's a split on Josh and CJ, it's kind of like, okay, well, if CJ goes home, is it going to be a steamroll for like the majority? And to see that the other votes were on Ozzy, who once again foreshadow, doesn't seem like he's like the most insulated person within the six anyway. It's like you either take out somebody who's on the bottom or you take out somebody who's on the out. So I was very nervous when I seen Josh play the idol and to see that the other two options were CJ and Ozzy.
Yeah. And it's an interesting like argument during the revote portion where CJ is, obviously on the hot seat. Marcelo calls him out for selling out the alliance that he had with um, Sarah and Marcelo. So at that point, he kind of just loses all credibility with them, and then trying to plead towards the other people that are voting that would be not safe was not great either. So, but CJ made it much farther than I had expected. I would say probably more than you had expected, right?
I mean, he was on my draft, so him.
Right.
I I definitely got nervous towards CJ because I felt like he was making himself such a big name, pushing the votes and the narratives of like the first few rounds. So I definitely this makes sense. This makes sense to like a closing arc for him in terms of like how he had played. But I
A,
think
lo-
he played really well, and I'm very glad that he made it as far as he did.
a lot of fun to watch. I'll add that in
Hmm.
there too.
Hmm.
So CJ, tries his best to get people to save him, but to no avail. And then the next round is even more interesting. They, it seems like Rocky kind of spearheads this move against Sarah, and it was mainly the main pitch, I guess, we're hearing is that Sarah is a comp beast and she has so many notes in her notepad for, I guess, the final three challenges, probably what that was referring to. Um, and Rocky kind of spearheads this blind side of Sarah where Ozzy's on the outs and everybody kind of glances over Josh for a round and they take the shot there at Sarah. What did you think of, this kind of core four, add in Josh just to save his ass and then blindside Sarah, leave Ozzy out?
So if you would have asked me to do this recap last week where we stopped at the Sarah blindside, I would have been a lot more nervous for the future. Because I mean, for me, um, the relationship between Josh and Rocky specifically has been so weird, and Josh has literally given negative reasons as to why Rocky would want to keep Josh in the game.
Right.
And quite frankly, Sarah and Ozzy have like been undyingly loyal. So even though it would have caused a predictable game for Josh to go home here, I think that like before seeing what happens in the future, I think that that would have made more sense to me. It was completely risky to get rid of Sarah over Josh, but if you don't risk it, you don't get the biscuit. And I think that if uh certain people get to the end, this move right here is going to be, in my opinion, a game-winning move. So even though it was riskier, I think that looking at the payout, it worked. It made sense.
Would you say that this could be, this is Rocky's move here on Sarah?
Um, So I don't know. I'm the firm believer of like, it takes a village. So everybody who casted the vote has a vested interest, but I think that it comes down to like everybody who voted for Sarah, like if you can explain it from your perspective. But I mean, in terms of the edit, I do give Rocky his flowers for sure. But I think that like obviously there were other things behind the scenes that we didn't see as well.
Yeah. And it's really hard because you mentioned the relationship between Rocky and Josh. You would imagine Rocky would kind of have that tunnel vision to just let's get him out. He's not safe right now, but to kind of look past that and kind of go for the bigger threat there.
Actually, the fact that you said that is gonna make me give Rocky some more flowers here because I think that when I played with him at All Stars, his weakness was his tunnel vision and actually wanting to take you out, and it became
Yeah.
his downfall. Um, so it is pretty nice to see him kind of like step outside of that tunnel vision and be like, look, we can make a move now together to keep you in the game and to give myself some mutual benefit. So it definitely seems like the more he plays Ascendance, the more he's definitely learning from those previous mistakes.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'll add is it seemed like obviously we know who the final four is at this point. We're just kind of recapping the last episode, but it seems like it's gearing towards a final three where Rocky, Taylor, and Marcelo are the front runners to be in that, warring an AJ win. And it's Marcelo and Taylor have this real good blindside move on Kira. And I feel like this kind of elevate Rocky could kind of own this move here and kind of almost even out, an end game argument, in my opinion.
Mhm. Yes.
So Sarah, obviously another fun character, completely shatters her brother's placement. So I'm sure that'll be great at Thanksgiving to talk about. She was so much fun to watch.
He was amazing. Yeah. I really I really like Sarah just commands presence. Like Sarah, when she stormed around the house looking for Josh to see where he was voting, like Sarah just is a very dominant person and like people just naturally gravitate to her. Unfortunately, I think that part of that was her demise, quite frankly. Whether she had notes or not, I don't think mattered as much as I think Taylor, Rocky, and Marcelo were always going to be a final three. And like it just made sense for a blind side of some sorts to happen to like better their position. Um, and Sarah, I think, in the minds of some of those people were realistically their biggest obstacle to get to the end.
Yeah. And it seems like Sarah from like not early, but like somewhat early to middle game did have her back up against the wall a couple times. And she was able to fight right through that shit. Um, so super fun to watch her this season, but she is eliminated here in sixth place or whatever. We're going into final six here,
She got set.
and she got seventh, right?
Mhm.
So at this point, it was again pretty cut in stone. Once Josh is not able to clutch out a win, it seemed as if his time was finally up. The man with 9 lives. I mean, this guy, all the way from when he blindsided Billy and like exposed him, I was like, this guy's probably not got much time left in the game, but he is able to sneak all the way up until this point. So, what'd you think of Josh being able to survive at round after round?
Quite frankly, I think it was amazing. I think that the show his willpower to like play the game. Like you never stop playing the game until you're voted out. And I think Josh was a prime example of that.
Yeah,
With that being said, it was his time, quite frankly. He was losing allies left and right, and nobody in their right mind was going to let him get to the end with playing two pendants correctly and just making a whole spectacle of the game. So I think that this was a perfect send off for him. I think that in saying that, um, I'm a little bit nervous for AJ because if he doesn't win, I think that this could possibly be a danger zone as to why he gets picked off. Um, to be honest.
so AJ, right, we're talking about him winning the captain here. He
Hmm.
has the option to kind of flip the game,
Hmm.
right, by saving Josh. This is the last time you have co-captain here at final six. He could have
Hmm.
saved Josh, but it seemed like Ozzy was not going to vote with them no matter what. It seemed like Oz, well, potentially if he saves Josh, he could
You
swing
force
something
Ozzy,
to
yeah,
vote.
because they're gonna vote for Ozzy in that point. And in my mind, AJ, Josh, and Ozzy need each other, whether they realize it or not. Whether AJ is a comp king or not, the other two need to realize it's more to this game. AJ's been voted out. You can outsell him. At this point, AJ saves Josh. They don't, they tell Ozzy, like, look, we're voting for whoever the fuck out of those three. Excuse my language. Um, but like one of us three cannot go home here so that we have a chance in the next round. Um, and so I think that saving Josh was the right move here. However, obviously, I'm a viewer watching it, so I don't know what was going on in the game at this time.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same thought as you, Jabbar. I thought I'm not sure why AJ was so bought in on the other three keeping him. I mean, to four, he said, but
Mhm.
you don't win the game at four, right? You got to get to the final two. So it seems like at that point he puts himself in a position where he has to win out no matter what. And we see it in the following round where he wins, but it was going to be between him and Ozzy on who the other three vote out. So I agree with you. I think it would have been obviously more fun to watch him save Josh and force a vote between the three, but we'll never know until the very end and when we're talking to everybody at the end. But obviously sends off Josh in the next round. Again, pretty cut and dry. AJ wins again, and then it's kind of just the end for Ozzy here. So, Ozzy, another huge character in the game from very early on. Was there anything Ozzy could have said, or was this final three going to be the final three until the end?
No,
Yeah.
no. I mean, if I was Ozzy, I would have tried to spin it as respectfully. Besides AJ, I've done the best in the competitions, and if you all want to neutralize that, you keep me in the game so that I can potentially beat him in one of the competitions. But then at that point, you run the risk of Ozzy winning out as well. So it's yeah, the minute that AJ won, it was kind of like done for Ozzy, which I'm so sad about. He was such a sweetheart and just like pure joy throughout the season for the most part. But I think that Ozzy was a little bit just too earnest in his actions. Like I think that he wanted to play based off of like honesty and integrity and like vote out people who did the worst in the challenge versus I I think that Ozzy was too pure.
Yeah, Ozzy, every almost every episode, if he's voting, we know exactly why he's voting because he's telling the people, exactly what he's thinking. So, I mean, it's a game that we don't often see in these things, but it's kind of a breath of fresh air there, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but Jabbar, we're here at the final four. Let's make some fucking predictions here, right? We got obviously the comp beast in AJ. Say AJ loses. He's gone, right?
Yeah.
And then we have a final three here of what we think to be Marcelo, Rocky, and Taylor. Who's taking whom?
Oh my God. Um, to be honest, I think Marcelo is guaranteed final two. I think Rocky or Taylor like will take the shot at each other, quite
Okay.
frankly. Um, yeah, I mean, but I don't know who Marcelo, if Marcelo wins, I don't know who he thinks he has the best chance against. Um, but if based off the edit of the season, I think that I think Marcelo's played a really good game, but I think that jurors won't be happy with him, quite frankly. I think that Marcelo might get second place. Um,
Why do you say they won't be mad? They will be mad at him just because he's promised every people some things and has not done something.
yeah, which I mean, which is in the constraints of the game. I think Marcelo has played a winning game, but I think that it's going to be the Peyton effect where people are just not going to be happy with him. Um, and I could be completely wrong, but that's just the vibe that I've gotten. But also, I just think that Taylor and Rocky have had more of a winner edit at points, and mainly Taylor. To be honest, I've called her edit the winner edit since like the very opening. So as fate would have it, if Rocky gets third place again, that will be baffling. But I can see AJ for Rocky 3, Marcelo 2, and Taylor 1.
That's what I'm thinking as well. It would be really tough to watch Rocky get third place though again.
Yeah,
I'd be, but
yeah.
it does seem like that might be the way things shake out. Do you think, say AJ miraculously kind of clutches here, who's AJ taking?
I think AJ might take Taylor, honestly. And this is where it's gonna get interesting because if AJ wins, I do think that he thinks that it's Rocky and Marcelo versus himself and Taylor. And at that point, I think Rocky could get fourth place because I mean Marcelo is in the game for Marcelo. So all they have to do is say, we want Rocky gone. And Marcelo jumped his ship. And at that point, it's all out pandemonium as to who makes it to the final two. So I do think that AJ winning the final four immunity creates a very interesting dynamic for the rest of the game.
Yeah. Um, it's interesting that you bring up like kind of the Peyton effect for Marcelo. Why would it not be the same case for Taylor? Because Taylor has kind of been in on a lot of the same stuff that Marcelo has. I know Marcelo has gone to pretty much almost every elimination and has voted correctly every single time up to this point. But Taylor, similar to Marcelo, has kind of played very along the lines of what he's done pretty much the entire time, barring a few eliminations here and there. Why don't you think she would get the same wrath of the jurors as Marcelo potentially would here?
So I think that you hit it the nail on the head. Marcelo has pretty much been at every elimination realistically, cutting deals, promising people things in the rooms and walking right out the room and being willing to do the exact opposite. And I think that even though Taylor has been in as many rooms, half of the rooms Taylor was in, she was in when she was safe. So she could just sit back and listen to the conversations rather than actually contribute, to be quite honest. Which I think has been really good for her game to know the tea without having to uh, give her opinion on it, realistically speaking. And I just think that we see a lot more of Marcelo just promising people things and just doing the opposite, quite honestly. So I think that um, if the jury is going to be upset with somebody, they're more likely to be upset with him than her.
Yeah, that's fair. Say if you were on the jury this season and it's Marcelo and Taylor. Um, Obviously we don't know how you got voted out, who you're bitter at, but just watching the game as a viewer, what kind of game would you vote for to win?
Um, I think that you're saying if I made it as far as like say Rocky or AJ.
Yeah, say and you went
Okay.
out on okay terms with both of them, but you've seen everything from the viewer's perspective like you have this season.
Oh, okay. So full transparency, I think that like out of the final four, I think that unbiasedly speaking, I'm the biggest fan of Marcelo's game. So with and I think that they're all playing really well, but I think that Marcelo is playing the game that I feel like I would have to play if I was in the game. So I
Yeah.
think well, I'm biasedly biased, of course. I would probably vote for Marcelo because I could see myself in that type of predicament. And I
Yeah.
just think that AJ, Rocky, and Taylor, to the common eye, or at least from what I'm viewing, especially with AJ and Rocky more so, I feel like their intentions and actions for the most part have been a lot more honest and earnest, with the exception of a few blind sides. And that just is not how I feel like I would come into this game playing. So
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how everything shakes out here, Jabbar. But I think at this point, any winner is going to be a great winner for the season.
I agree.
Um, we have AJ here who's battled back, has absolutely dominated the physical, mental portion of the competitions. Rocky, I think, has made a huge move here towards the end of the game, has played very well socially. Marcelo, like you said, has been a little bit of a sneaky snake, but has been fun to watch doing it. And then Taylor almost has a perfect edit here at this point where not really in any trouble at all, has won a couple competitions and has really taken on the social game as well, really well, and has a couple
Yeah.
blindside under her belt too.
Yeah. I will say, in saying all of this, I love a good surprise. So I really hope that what we predicted is not the case. Um, because I'll be watching live and I just want to be in awe.
Yes. And I'll be watching live as well next Thursday, or yep, Thursday this
Mhm.
week. And I'm not sure. I think it's probably going to be final four elimination and then potentially the first competition of the final three. So we will see.
Mhm.
Jabbar, as always, it's been a pleasure. Congratulations on your fifth win. Go
Thank
hype up his post on the Conquest page,
you.
everybody who's watching.
Thank
And yeah, until next season, probably, Jabbar, I appreciate you coming
you.
on.
Yes, thank you for having me once again.